The administrative assistant position is being retitled as executive assistant, and that raise is larger than 5% because that person is moving from 40,440 to 45,000. Those are the second and third line items. The coordinator of support services, Frank Fatia, was getting paid from two line items, a total of $58,510. He's being retitled Commissioner Administrative Staff and is being increased 5% to $61,436. The Veteran Service Officer was being a targeted increase from $34,599 to $41,000. That's an 18% increase for that specific position. Fixed Asset Specialist is also being increased a little bit larger than the 5% because there was already a raise agreed to in the current year. So this is one of those situations where the adopted 2022 is different than the amended 2022 because there's already been a raise built into this year. So it looks like a much larger raise than it is. It's 5% above what they're currently getting paid. The Human Resource Director is a targeted raise to $70,000 to attempt to get closer to the market, although it's somewhat less than what the market would pay for, obviously in the private sector for an HR director. And Director of Procurement is another situation down there at the very bottom of the page where it does look larger, but it is a 5% increase over what was already given to the Director of Procurement when there was a reorganization in that specific subset of the Commissioner's Department. If you flip through pages 5 and 6, which are the non-personnel items, there are very few changes. Other contractual services went up $23,000. There's a bunch of things like this employment study that are paid for by the commissioners. Promotion went up $35,000, and you may have noticed the commissioners are giving out keys and plaques and awards and persons of the year and citizens of the year, and therefore the promotions line item is requesting more dollars. And $400 for a drainage ditch fee, because we have some parcels, this is on the last page of the general fund, that we have some parcels that we own, and we're not allowed to not pay our drainage ditch fees just because we, the county, own those parcels. I'll pause because that's the general fund, and I'll let you ask Derek questions because this is his first budget as the leader of the commissioners in the budget process, and he can answer questions as to why he's set up this specific portion of his budget.
Yeah, this budget was put together. Andy had some input. They can hear me.
Well, Mark can. Oh, well.
Can you hear me, Mark?
Jeez.
Okay, thank you. That's not the middle finger, Dick. That's just thumbs up. Yeah, Andy had some input on this. So again, just like everything, it's all been a work in progress. But the things that we have done with your help so far, with your guys' help, specifically for PSAP, with helping out with the salaries, that really did a good job, and with the new director there, they're doing very well on everything that's going there with her. We were extremely lucky to get Richard as our IT director. You can tell he's very squared away, knows what he's doing, and comes with a wealth of knowledge and stuff from Elkhart. I think you all know that we have had 3 of our people, EMA, are no longer working for us. There was huge issues in that. One that you guys have been a part of trying to update these sirens for a long, long time, which have never been done. Just the other things that have gone on there, from mileage, attendance, and then when the new interim director took over, he found that 2 months of mail was sitting in the mailroom that hadn't been opened, and we are working to try to get all of the paperwork back to the state because they had forms that were never filled out, turned in, updated, so we're fixing all that is another thing. The other thing that everybody here has worked on, and it started with Mark's suggestion for building security. We need to get an executive session with you guys and the people who are doing a proposal. When we met with Sheriff Redmond and Major Noonan, which Bobby Kay and Raphael were there, they cannot staff what we have currently in the county city building. So there's a proposal from Trident Security, which are sworn officers of the South Bend Police who do off-duty work. So we'll present that in an executive session probably next week or whenever y'all can do that. So we're doing that. I thank Corey for hooking us up with Enterprise, because that's going to really give us a good idea of what we have as far as vehicles, because mileage has not been kept, gas consumption has not been kept, phantom damage has not been kept. EMA is missing registrations from their car, we have a PSAP truck, we haven't a Title IV, so that's part of the thing, and I am taking the fleet manager out. We've talked about that with Kim, until we get our final information from Enterprise to see if we really need that, or they can do it, or a combination of both. So we'll get working on that. We've met with the ERP. I've assigned somebody, called him the fourth commissioner. He will now be working exclusively with Butler Incentive to get that. Oh, okay, my bad. Either way, 3.5. So his job is now going to be specifically to help them, which I think he brings some level of expertise so they can get that going. That's one of the reasons that we gave. Yeah. Yep. So that's his, so yeah, he knows his stuff, so that'll be good. So that's why we gave a bump to our secretary, our executive secretary, because she's taking a lot of his things that he did, which was a lot of other things, so she'll be concentrating on that. Oh, and one of the things in the budget, and whatever line item that was, there was a contract signed 4 years ago for $750,000 to rent a parking garage for our vehicles that we pay, I don't know what number it's, I think it's $79,000 a year?
79.2.
Okay, so actually Friday I'm going, because I have been told, and I haven't seen it yet, elevators don't work, it's filthy, homeless, it's a bad thing. So if we can get out of their contract, we will, because that's a lot of money just for so many cars, because all of the other cars in our fleet park there. I think some employees park there, but then some employees have to pay. I don't know, it's just kind of bizarre, so we'll check into that. So that's a lot of money for parking, so we'll look at that. And then also some of the parcels, once we clear some of that up, we have in the, Bobby, you remember how many pieces of property we owned in the city? It was over 100, right? Okay, it was a lot, at least, so yeah, so once we refine that from who has the exact data, Carlson, we'll come to you and talk, because I'm of the mind of, why don't we sell all those things that we have to mow, maintain, give them a citizen to buy them for $1. They have it, they pay taxes, and we get it off our plate. So that's another thing we're working on. We're working on possibly bidding out the rest of snowplow and mowing, because we have way too many miles. We don't have enough people to do that. So we're getting caught up on that, so thank you guys for helping out and giving stuff when we need to do it, and good give and take. We did, or I did, eliminated the county executive, which has been on the plate here for a while, that Andy talked about in his state of the county. My view, that should be my job, or soon-to-be job, or whatever, so we don't need an added layer between us and you and that. And I think there also, at one time, was a projected project manager, which we don't need. So that's collectively us working together and doing things. I think we can handle anything that would arise when we're talking to each other, working with each other, or whatever. So that's a good thing. There's probably stuff I missed, so if y'all have questions.
Let me just sum up the seated fund, because sometimes we overlook that, and then we decide we'd like to talk about it way late in the game. So seated fund, which is page 7 for those of you following along at home, is where we catch some additional commissioner expenses, like legal expenses, which are being requested as an increase. We typically spend more than the budget is, so you can either budget more, or you can see the commissioners back next summer for an additional appropriation, your choice. There's also an increase for leaf pickup, which is contractual with the organization that does the leaf pickup. And there's an increase in the line item that we use for demolitions. Over time, we had allowed the demolition line item to drizzle down to almost nothing, and therefore no demolitions were being done on parcels that the county needed to demolish. Well, with this aggressive code enforcement that we're involved in, it may very well be that we're going to need to have some demolition money for some of those parcels in the long range. The increase is $250,000. The actual total is $700,000. So I think that the concept from the budget manager on the seventh floor, Kara, is that she's going to pay out more than $400,000 in legal fees. The question is whether or not you want to budget it, because we're going to have more than $400,000 in legal fees, or whether or not you want to see it as an additional appropriation next summer. All the above. So I think that attorneys that are on staff have scopes of work that are covered for their $30,000 paychecks, and then everything else they bill at hourly rates.
That's hard for me to believe because, it just seems like the attorneys, most of the attorneys we have on staff, they're paid more because they look at a piece of paper or something.
Yeah, you may be right on the scope of, I don't know the scope of work that's covered under their salary.
I mean, they take a job as, let's say, a deputy attorney for $30,000, next thing you know, they're making $100,000.
They are billing for hours, you're right.
We have building hours, but we have many, we have like 25, 30 attorneys on staff.
No, we have 4 in the commissioners, 1 in the assessor, 1 in the sheriff, not 20.
I think there's 8 or 9.
Look at ours.
Your council attorney.
But Bob, you're saying the billable hours keep adding up, and yeah, that's it, it's getting
It does come up every year, so I'm not discounting your point.
insane.
So then why don't we get a track of it and leave it as is and have them come and justify it?
I think that's what we've done in years past. We've had the same exact conversation.
Was it high last year because of the redistricting stuff?
Well,
Higher
there
than
have been
usual?
one-offs. Redistricting was the fun one this last year.
My suggestion is $5,000. And look at that.
Right, that's what I'm saying, you're welcome. That's what I'm saying, that's exactly what I'm saying. Keep it and let them come back and tell us why they need it.
And maybe instead of waiting until they're out of money, you could request some type of quarterly update on what we spent our legal fees on,
There you go,
so it's not surprising.
there you go.
I think you're going to find it's normal stuff, so I'm not actually trying to make it sound sarcastic.
Yeah, but then that alleviates, that alleviates the speculation.
So you want us, or we can,
That's right. That's right.
Correct.
okay, I can retro that and ask them to send us what they've spent the money on this year,
That'd be great.
and that's a good, we can quarterly, hey, y'all need to tell us.
So this, on page 7, you're saying it's in 700,000.
I think that's what Corey said. That there was 1 of 9.
And if this was a guy, we're going to start arguing about $450,000 or $500,000 for about 30 minutes.
And one more thing that we're checking on is, we've talked about a redevelopment of their salaries of how much money redevelopment should be paying that. So once we get that stuff, we'll put that in.
How much are we paying the attorneys to figure that out?
We should have went to law school.
This is where we take a shot at Steve.
I should have studied in school.
Yeah, pay Steve either way.
Oh. Did you get a hat? Did you get a Dalton hat?
Is if you don't manage them, you would have tremendous costs that you shouldn't be having. Bingo, you've got to manage attorneys. I never asked my attorney what the time is and whether the weather's good, because he charges me. So, and it's just, somebody's got to manage this cost, or this cost goes crazy. That's my many years of experience with it.
Who sets the scope? Is that
As far as,
Also, at how much time they take versus just their pay. Because my best attorney was my most expensive by the hour, but he didn't take many hours.
Well, I think Joe's question, like, what's the scope? So they're hired to do this deputy attorney position. What is the scope of that work? So what falls outside of that scope that they're allowed to bill for?
I don't know the answer to that, do you?
offhand, no.
And then I guess another question there is, when do we know they're billing too?
I think that's true.
Everything else. Our attorney attended this meeting, and in this meeting, we say, hey, we want you to go about this, we want you to chase all these, that hour, they do it.
Well, and I guess to that,
So we have Mish, Pete, Heppenheimer.
So
we'll get it, say we need to get your updates. So will you send something to Triple, or do you want us to send something, or?
Triple?
I think you need to see.
Yeah, but we need to
It'd be curious, well, and how many quick one-off questions, like, how do they do that in Kosciuszko County? He's like, I'll find out.
That's what I'm saying.
$180
To
bucks.
answer that right here, you're not gonna go for that, but then he goes back, and he spends 2 hours looking up all that stuff, he goes back to the doctor, that's absolutely it.
Right.
And like, I know my commissioners attorney, they also said the election board attorney came out of the house.
JJC,
Yeah,
pretty good
so
government.
maybe it can separate each of those.
Yeah.
He only gets a salary from the commissioner's budget. All other time is billed as incurred.
So the election board is getting, that's billable hours.
The election board doesn't have a separate line item for attorney, so he's just billing for that.
But he's there.
I should have studied more in school. I should have studied. Shouldn't have dropped out of high school.
So I'm just trying to think.
No, that's a good point to find, like, because I get you all, it's a good gig.
Yeah, we have our people check in and out of, what's that?
Kronos.
Every minute of every day, we're gonna check in the computer.
Yeah. Good point.
Especially if it's gonna go criminally down.
Just to say we covered it, because then we can at least talk about it later on as what changes you want to make. Page 8 is CCD,
We're done with 7.
well, unless you had other questions.
When you look at the lead contract, I mean, by the time you total up all these extra costs that we're paying, we're right back to square one.
You know, we agreed on that already, didn't we?
So, yes, we have a contract, and I don't remember what the old price was. Wasn't it like $2 million at one point in time?
We were paying 1.2 and it was gonna go to 1.7 and then 2.3 and,
But you're right, it does seem like it has creeped back up.
but I think we agreed to it,
Insane.
didn't we? I think he had a 3 or 5 year plan,
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we signed him up for some
Right.
years.
and every year,
We didn't sign them up, the commissioner signed them up.
well,
And if he gave us subscriptions, we must have some
yeah,
stuff.
right, but our costs were scheduled to increase by some percentage every year.
Yeah.
I don't
This is
remember
going up 5%.
We cover his equipment costs.
equipment and labor and, you know, he baked in inflation.
According to this, he's up 6%. The question is, is 6% on reason?
I don't think it has anything to do with reason. I think we already signed the contract.
Yeah.
We determined it was reasonable then, if I remember.
Should I call Mish and, that's a joke.
Read the contract, 2.5 hours.
Mitch and Pete discussed this.
Bob, how long it was that you guys, a couple years ago, did a,
Well, this says it's a 2022,
2 more years, doesn't it?
this says it's a 2022 through 2027 contract. So it was just a year ago, probably.
Yeah, it's self-set. I mean, it's a
Would we all like copies of that contract? I mean, it's a,
We
pu-
have
it's
to pay
a,
an attorney to get it?
it's a public document. No, Kara can pull it.
Kara, yeah, I'll check, I'll have Kara check that.
runs out, because what's the use of looking at it?
2027.
Yeah, 2027. And it's got built-in escalators. Now, Bob, you also have mentioned in the past that you felt like there was some things that were gray in the contract, like who pays for what, fuel, or who pays for where he dumps leaves. I don't know the contract well enough to answer that.
Well, part of the contract is he was expecting to purchase or lease new equipment too, so I guess maybe there'd be a reason to look to make sure that actually happened, if that's the case. New money?
It sat at Corey's house all last October.
Something about the trees.
Remind me, under this contract, what does the commissioner make now under this? It's 5% increase.
So,
What they for?
50,400,
How much?
50,400 for a regular commissioner, and 55,440 for a presidential commissioner.
That's a president.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, they do not check in on Cronus. Elected officials don't have to.
Comment I make on that is I think the 5% is very reasonable, and I think when we get to the council budget, it's certainly reasonable for the council members to get 5% too. So that, I'm just looking ahead to our next session.
Yeah, that's why we put,
And I think anybody that thinks that the 5% is wrong, I got a lot of arguments.
I think it's wrong.
The other thing, the other thing is, okay, you're thinking about all that discussion. The other thing is, I think we got a lesson, and we should listen to our lessons. If you don't do anything, then all of a sudden you want 20% and you get put to the wall because you want 20%. You didn't get anything for 4 years, but now you want a 20% increase. And it's stupid politics, and so a little bit every year is a hell of a lot better than putting it off for a big problem later, which is what we did.
I think everybody's underpaid, except the attorneys.
Jimmy Carter just came in the room.
Yeah, so then all of a sudden we need a big raise and we get, no, 5% like the commission.
Well, I want 10%. Okay.
Were there any other questions on seating?
Other contractuals, 450's going up because of 450,000.
Demolitions. The request was that we hold additional dollars there in that line item for demolitions. It was the only reason. There's really very little else paid out of that, though. Space studies, we haven't done a space study.
450,000 for demolition.
Well, if you recall, we're trying to get 500,000 from South Bend just to do the current list of demolitions. So it could be that much a year.
So there's 450 here and then
She had what,
we had 100.
yeah, I think she has 100 in her budget.
See, like, the thing like that building at Portage Manor, remember? They started at 450, da-da-da-da, and when we were out there, like, I think we, or whoever's an expert in that, this is greatly exaggerated of what they're asking for. And like, when we had that businessman we took the tour the other day, and he said he could knock that down for like 40,000. Like, there's, yeah, so there's a disconnect, so I guess we need to go look at, could that something be done in-house down the road or whatever? But for us to be getting bids out for, what was that, 30 by 40 building, 450,000 is crazy. So, but that's the part of what Abby, and they're gonna be increasing with the new code stuff and paying more attention to buildings that are horrible, because there was never really a big budget. But I think, the way I'm looking at it, we, or me, or whoever, we need to go find somebody that can take these down at, that price is crazy. So,
Accidental demolitions?
but,
We're at the end of Adams Road.
no, I'm sure we can go find some contractors that would love the work.
From what I'm seeing,
I'm sure we could find some contractors who would love the work.
what I'm saying,
Because again, there's some people, well, we didn't get the right paper, well, we'll help you get the paperwork, you'd get it.
what I'm seeing on page 7, the big 7.
Yeah.
They take 200,000 out, which is simply not do something because of the lawyers. We're up 583,000, which is 37%. So, you know, that's if the questions later, you know, we go to the public with a 37% increase. That's what I say.
John, do you have an opinion
This
on,
is not 50%.
We're deficit spending in this budget. We have, something has to be cut out of this budget. I'm not saying it has to be this department, but it can't sustain the spending that we have. We're gonna be spending down the seat at about $2 or $3 million. And we had it at $8 million just last year. I mean, we can't, we should kind of go a little slower, I think, on this one.
The question to the commissioners is, you know, do you want to go to the public with a 37% increase, which is 583,000?
Well, as long as it can be explained, then people can make a decision on it. But the question I have for you guys, has there ever been any parameters given to all of our attorneys to say, hey, if I call you on the phone, like most attorneys will go 0.15, 15 minutes, I'll bill you. Have we ever set something up?
No.
Okay. That, I have no problem of looking into that and finding, and get your opinion, hey, if we call you and you're working for us already, you're going to charge us? I don't know if they are, but there should be, well, that should be, like, if you call ABC attorney and whatever, and, oh, yeah, I'll look for that, yeah, that's half hour.
Page 7 is seated.
Yeah.
So is there any reason that the demo bump has to come out of seated?
It could come out of a different place.
I mean, would that make sense just not to spend on that fund? And so when we put a lien on a property for a demo, which almost certainly won't recoup the cost, but some portion, is that money goes back into general, right? Ultimately, it's collected?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
So if we're bumping up demo, to me, it kind of makes sense, one, to not spend on seated, and two, have it come out of general where the ultimate recollection would go and in the end.
I think it would be good if we in the code enforcement budget. But the only problem with that is that's the general fund, and that's also being spent down. That fund is also being spent down. I mean, it's got more to begin with than seated. It has 24 million at the beginning of this year to start, so it has more of it can be spent down. So I would prefer it being in the code enforcement budget. I think that's more logical.
Yeah,
But,
and at least then the money that gets recollected is going back to where we're spent from.
right, if we do collect from South Bend, City of South Bend, we should probably put that in the general fund to support code enforcement. Would be my recommendation.
One question I got, and, I think as a friend of the commission, nowadays, I mean, other contractual services have gone from $150,000 to $600,000 for a $450,000 increase, which is a 300% increase in that line item.
That's what we're talking about right now.
Well, you were talking about lawyers, this is not.
No, I'm talking about demolition coming out of the code enforcement budget, which is in the general fund, which is what the other contractual services is, that just got increased 450. That's what we're talking about right now.
Okay, let's keep talking about it, because that 450 is not gonna help out of their budget,
That's why we're talking about moving it to code enforcement, which is in the general fund,
which will take how much out?
450.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be all of it, though, because there's
Yep.
other things listed here.
Well, in other words, you will.
Very few other important contracts. The entire increase was demolition.
Okay, all right, so you want to do that? That makes sense.
That sounds like a
to me.
shell game to me, but maybe it works.
It's a cool shell game, though. At least drops down this fund and this location to only increasing $133,000, which is a lot less.
It seems like we're backlogged on demo too, so is it possible that less is needed later?
It's possible we won't use it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then ultimately we could drop that line item. And I think that's an easy story to tell to the public.
So go over that again, is that where the 450,000?
We
I
don't,
don't know, I live in the city, so you tell me. What's code enforcement worth and remediation of abandoned buildings?
No, I'm talking about dollars.
I'm asking you.
You were talking about moving to
It's
another
worth
fund.
it, it's worth it to move it and address the situation. We have a brand new code enforcement department who, they are doing a hell of a job. We need to work with them as much as we can. It's worth it to move to the budget.
Okay,
It's
so-
very logical.
So
And
plan
it takes
A
it out of
is to
their
move
budget,
450,000 to code enforcement.
or at least most of it now.
They have 100,000 in the general fund right now. Should
Demolitions, strictly codes.
we add all this 450?
Could just be houses.
What do you think?
I'd say,
Most of it?
I would say like 400,000 for
400,
code
okay.
enforcement in the general fund.
I agree. That's
Something
just,
like that.
Okay, then where's that?
That's a pretty
fund
big
show
chunk of
up?
money.
The fund that gets that, where does that show up?
That'll be in the general fund location 71 budget. But we'll have to get it in there, we have to make that change.
Abby's budget for code enforcement.
So we'll change. I think that's a good idea, Joe. I think I do.
Actually, the conversation we were having recently was not to use ARP, but it was to use this money from South Bend. We were hoping to not use ARP, yeah.
We haven't budgeted the revenue from South Bend because we don't know for sure if they're going to pay. I mean, if we could, if we think that we have a reasonable chance, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I sent a letter to their controller about 2 months ago and he didn't respond. The building department, that is a joint county-city building department, has cash reserves that have built up over the last 20 years, and there's enough money, we think, to pay us out about 500,000, and they could pay themselves out to lower those cash reserves, where each entity could take a little bit of money out of the fund. It's all provided for in the contract, but the contract is real old, it's like 20 years old.
And if he didn't respond, that's not a good sign.
That means he's stalling,
There
or,
was a
yeah.
response.
Oh, you got to,
Yeah, I don't know who was on what email, so the two attorneys are talking to each other, the South Bend attorney and the county attorney, about writing a new building department agreement. Sorry, I know that's sarcastic, but it's true.
The summary I get is 200,000 went from the law, although it may come back later.
Right.
400,000 went over to code enforcement. So now they're up 183,000, so 11.6% instead of 49.7. I don't think the taxpayers saved any money, but this budget makes a lot better.
Gotcha. John, do you get a monthly bill from all our attorneys?
I don't get it, I think Karen.
Karen does? Okay. So for you guys, I'll get, pardon me?
Yeah.
So I'll get that, attorneys, and then I'll find out on the leave contract what that entails. So is there anything else that you guys need, or part of this?
Other than tracking all the, other than tracking 600,000.
I'll get on it, man.
I'll go to the next page if you're ready. Page 8 is CCD. There's no changes. This is the, yeah, we need to change. This is the place where we pay buildings and structures expenses and just in generic format for all departments that have building and structure needs, office equipment, furniture and fixtures. This is when you guys tell a department who comes to you this time of year and asks for something, go ask the commissioners. They have a line item for that. This is that line item that you're sending them to go get. No change. And then,
Is that approximately this year?
They spend it. That gets spent almost every year. Oh, yeah. Yes.
there's even been years where they ran out, and so then we spent most of it by March of the following year, because they were holding bills up, waiting. The following page, if you're ready for it, is page 9, which is a budget that John has put in the book here in the last couple of years, which is our workers' comp and liability fund. We grab dollars from all the different departments that owe liability checks to the county because they may have lawsuits that need to be handled or settled, and we put those into this fund to pay out things that are related to liability. The commissioner just told you that he wants to remove the fleet manager from this request, so John can take the fleet manager out. We've already put the insurance investigator back into the general fund with the rest of the HR department. So the only person left in this fund would be the risk manager or risk coordinator, I think,
The safety director now.
safety director.
And that person will now be in charge. I took away Brian's, because at the last meetings, when I think you guys asked the sheriff, who does the panic buttons, da-da-da-da, they said maintenance, maintenance said sheriff. So I ended that, so Mr. Yeary is now going to be in charge of all of the cameras in this building, which don't work, and all of the panic buttons, where we're missing 35. So that will all be his, so that's off Brian's plate, so he worries about maintenance. So Robert will get that done on that, so.
You may have remembered a couple departments complained because their liability transfer was changed. PSAPs was probably the largest jump, and that was because John reran the liability allocation to those funds. And it was fair, they just didn't like theirs going up. The only employee in this fund got a 5% raise as well.
There's 115.
One person left, safety director. That's the entire commissioners. Fire away if you have other questions for Derek.
So this one's about to pay 60 for that.
Yep. We'll spend it. Liability happens. You can put that on a t-shirt.
I sell a lot of those t-shirts. There'd be like 7 actuaries waiting.
Oh, and then one more thing from EMA, there was a vehicle that nobody knew where it was, a part of EMA, and we found that at the garage of Riverside, so that's being brought back, and they'll probably go to IT because they asked for a car to do their thing. And then all the other property that everybody kind of worked on, especially Bobby, of the stuff that's been laying up behind Dukem and the county police station for decades or whatever, just about all of it is sold off, but I'm trying to find out, once the money comes in, it's an online auction that we apparently hooked up with. If that goes into the general fund, I don't know, but what do we have, 30 trucks back there, plows, all kinds of stuff sitting back there for probably decades.
And we found some at 40 Commander the other day.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were 3, 4 back over there.
Bobby, what would your call of an auction, what would that stuff be worth? Because some of those trucks appeared, could probably be used as opposed to just junked. Yeah, so I'll find out from once they do all that. But I think at the end, all the other stuff that just may be scrapped, I don't know, we'll find. So thanks to Bobby, he took me out there, what is all this? Whatever. So that's another thing that we can tighten up and go from there.
Good job.
Thank you.
Anything else for commissioners?
I'll hook up with you on that demolition stuff.
Last for tonight is council.
That's good.
Actually, I think that Mr. File is going to tell you it doesn't, because the commissioners, if they're going to get a 5% raise, he's going to make a case that you guys should give yourself something.
Of course.
I know, I was just saying it for you.
I mean, my lord, maybe making, maybe $25,000. That'd be 11. Terrible money, 25,000. I mean, for God's sakes, I
Right.
personally don't, I think it ought to be more than 5%. I think it ought to be, we ought to take it to 25,000. That's what I think.
I'm good with that. Should.
I mean, if the percentages of 11 doesn't sound good, but 25,000 is very little pay for all the work we do. There's no question about it. We make less than the lowest paid full-time person in the county. So why should we get worried about getting less than the lowest paid full-time person in the county? I don't think.
You looking at me? You should be paid, not that it's in my ballpark, but you should be paid as much as the lowest county employee.
We talked about that last year. I think we blanched when we saw how big that increase looked in percentages. We blanched. You like that word?
I understand that all in one step. I understand, I get that, but now you're starting the next step.
I'll add this just because you're not all responding to that specific first question, but we talked last year about the fact that your executive secretary is very similar to the commissioner's executive secretary, and the commissioners are asking for their executive secretary with added duties to go to 45,000. This would not reflect that big a jump for Jen, so if you wanted her to be at 45,000, we would have to adjust for that.
But I think that you can always pick off people in other places. I don't like that sort of thing. Now, I like her, but I mean, I don't know that that's the right way to do that.
I would assume, I'll just do this for Kim's, is Kim still here? Yeah. I'll do this for Kim's benefit. I'd assume that when you read this pay study, you're going to find that there needs to be some leveling of titles and pay rates. We currently have, something crazy like 1,000 pay rates for 1,400 people. It's nuts.
Want me to pass it out?
So this would just be one of those situations where you could level. Yes.
I was concerned that we get a big budget.
Well, and on that note, county attorney and council attorney, right? I mean, we're not giving triple on him up here?
I don't think so.
No?
I'd say we should.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Kim. 8.6% cost of living increase would be quite a bit more sizable than the numbers that we've been looking at. Probably true, probably reflective of the market.
You want to explain it?
But the other problem we got is whether we're gonna go over 80 million.
We are gonna go, yes. We already are over 80 million, we're 83 million.
Yeah, I know, but how, by what method we get back to 80 million?
Yes, yes.
I was looking at county council here and county hospital of $9,089.
So these were coming from Kent Irwin, Wagner, and Shields. They're the company that is doing the study. Had requests that you guys had that you wanted to see elected officials across some different counties. So they did put this together for you guys to view. Now, which one were you looking at? Of course. Which council?
Since you're here, Randy, for the last debate, our council along with Lake County is a little bit unique
Yes.
because we got a fiscal body and a legislative body.
Yeah.
Most of the counties, except for Lake and Marion, because they're weird at us, they only do the budget, the fiscal. So they have like 70%.
Not an average.
Yeah.
Really gotta look at Lake and Marion. Somewhat Marion, very unique. But same building, like county council, I mean, a lot more responsibility than all the other property.
And notably, the commissioners in St. Joe County have much less responsibility, as we do so much more of their work.
In every other county, except for Lake, a lot of work we've done is done strictly the commissioner's office.
So keep that in mind when you're comparing the commissioner salaries.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what goes around country.
We're still way down.
So,
And I guess the other reference is like, what's South Bend Council?
I think, 7 what? No, I think they're 18.
What?
South Bend Council, 18? They're-
Is that it?
It's not Mishawaka.
Hey, Mishawaka, when I left there, we were making $9,000.
If you're worried about the percentage.
It just runs so on its own.
South Bend City Council pay.
Percentage is still 5%, okay, instead of 25,000, it's 11%. I get that, but certainly, you don't want to go for nothing and then end up with a mess like we had last time.
And I agree with Jeff on that. When I heard you guys hadn't had a raise in years, when I was told that, I said, you're nuts. Sorry.
Well, it took like this.
And then you guys get all grief from the press or whoever. Look at those guys, what I'm telling people.
City Council makes, South Bend City Council, 20,200.
So anyway, I think my. Maybe 1%.
Well, I don't think it's a question, but we're going to apply to the commissioners. I don't think that's.
The commissioners don't have to go at 5.
That's right.
5%.
So where do you want to land? This is your last one of the evening. Sometimes we don't land at all, we just we glide by.
I do tend to agree that whatever we do percentage-wise for the commission, I think we should do for the council, and I do think that we should find parity for our secretaries.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I guess if we're at it, I think that whatever percentage we give the county attorney, we should give our attorney.
Like you said, that has to be 5, but
You mean like they get both paid the same hourly rate after their?
Percentage increase.
Their base salary, we're talking about the same percentage, whatever the hell they bill us.
Okay. Because I think
5%.
your attorney's hourly rate, I think, is way lower than our guys.
Okay.
I know what he does.
Okay.
I know what the other one does.
Okay.
Is what ours does? No,
Okay.
no way,
All right.
no way.
That's what I'm asking.
I know what Michigan does. There's a lot of other ones that have been final decisions that were that way. It's not like these two are dead. There have been some very strong cases made for specific individuals. Other than those, I'm certain that we don't all agree on those, but other those, I think 3% is the norm. Unless I was convinced that Dick File needs 20% for, there were individuals that they, hey, this person, we gotta do 20% for this person. If you believe on those, then we're gonna argue about those, but what is the base? How do we get to $8 million? I brought it up a month ago when I was insane. Now,
I agree with 3%. 3% is the base
I'm
salary.
saying throughout this entire county budget, and the general fund employees, unless there was
Some people
some
ask for
some
7.
evidence of why this individual needed more.
Maybe we see what it looks like at 3.
IT, let's say you're the biggest IT fan, you we absolutely have to pay like more, but the standard, in my mind, is 2%.
And the standard of 3% would get us to where John Doty was saying we need to be, or close to.
Closer.
Closer,
Well, I think Sebastian,
What?
I have to put the numbers in there for sure.
but closer.
Yeah,
Yeah, but according to the data I sent to the council
Closer.
today, which was your chart, 75% of our total pay in the general fund is personnel.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
So therefore, 75 cents on every buck we spend is for personnel. So what you do with personnel pay has got a lot to it, believe me. And not only that, the other thing about it is, we all know, is once you put it up, you can't pay it down. So you're there for the future.
Well, these raises compound too.
No, I'm just saying, that's where the money is. If we're gonna end up with the 80 million, you've gotta be careful what you do with personnel
Well,
costs.
our last meeting, we were at 5%, and we're now saying we want to move that down to 3%.
So I'm saying,
Yes, yes,
what I've been saying all along.
yes. That's why I just made
I
the
was in
comment.
agreement at 5% last time, and we'll take that down to 3%.
You said you were in agreement with
I
5?
said that's what the council settled last meeting, like, it was kind of 5%.
But then I thought John was not in agreement with that because it was,
I like 3%.
as far as the reserves,
I'm fine going to 3, yeah, that's fine. I think that's better, yes.
because the other 5 was dipping into the reserves
Yeah.
in too much in John's opinion. Yeah, philosophically, I disagree with
If we go to 3%, what's the
you
reserve?
on the amount of reserves, but that's a whole other story.
John, do you know, like, remember off the top of your head what 3% across the board does to the,
Across all of the
we don't have it off the top of our heads, Bobby, we can run it. I do appreciate some of the departments that agreed to reduce headcount and reorganize, and take advantage of technology. I think that, like Brian, agreeing to reduce headcount so that you can pay people more on spot pricing to get people in the door, hopefully that reflects a trend where we don't have 1,400 people this time next year, we have 1,350 people this time next year.
Yeah, two things on that point. First of all is, yes, I agree with 100%. That was part of the conversation about how we want to have the department heads have the flexibility.
Right.
To do exactly that. And he listened to us and did what we asked him to do. So I think that's absolutely part of it, because it's more than 3%. However, this group of people, please remember how many people Brian has now, because 2 years from now, he goes back and gets 4 more people back. It was screws up.
He has made it pretty clear that unless we start buying more buildings,
And I'm not saying I don't believe him, I'm saying that's how he recorded it, the same thing, he did the same thing, he used the recreation fund, he reduced their budget,
seeking fewer, better staff.
That's what you do that with better salary.
That's right.
But let's talk about that a minute, because I think it's an important point. We're now in a very high level of inflation. So that's why we had people coming back to us. That's why this budget's $3 billion higher than when we adopted it last year. Because during the year, we linked it on, not arguing with it, we did it because we kept saying we gotta keep people on the payroll in 2022. But this is a 2023 budget. And we got practically everybody that knows anything about economy telling us we're gonna have a recession next year. And so we're in a different, so the pace that you're going for in 2023 has got a different atmosphere with our taxpayers in this year. And also, there's all kinds of people think that the inflation rate at the end of next year is going to be 3% or less. Now, that doesn't mean your average isn't, it's between you start out and then you go down to 3. I get that. But the argument that the current inflation rate is going to exist is shot because the Federal Reserve is going to see to it it doesn't continue. And we have all kinds of reasons to think there's a recession. So this is 2023 pay, and the arguments for 2022 pay are not sufficient to 2023 pay.
Here's the thing about inflation.
But you're predicting the next
No,
year.
I'm not predicting anything. Inflation, if you have 9% inflation, that's a month-over-month annual comparison. So there's $100 last June, cost $109 this
These aren't
year.
same time for this year.
Right, hold on then. 3% inflation next June means the thing that was $109 this June is like $112.50. It didn't drop,
But it increased.
it increases by less.
Right.
How often do we have slow? How often? But it didn't get cheaper than it was then. So there's $100 in 21, it's $109 in 22, and maybe it's only $112 in 23. But the case is that some of these people are making over 5 and 7 and 8%. Next year, for every dollar they earn, they'll only be able to buy like 88% as much as they could have last year. And they only buy 91% of that now. So the rate of inflation increasing doesn't have shit to do with it.
That's a good point.
Would you say it doesn't have shit to do with the overall picture?
No, the current rate of inflation cannot persist because things would double.
Right.
Okay? But things don't deflate. When was the last time there was deflation? It's been on 3 times in the
When I
last
was
3
in
years.
94, 2 weeks ago, I got stuck and I got flat.
It doesn't happen.
Say that all night.
So unless
You
you
wanna do this?
even in a recession, inflation just gets less.
You got a good point there, Dick.
Right, got a good point. But we got a problem to get down to 80 good.
Right.
From,
Right.
deputy auditor.
Right.
So Nick, how much were you recommending council make then next year? I think you gotta get, I said if the commissions get 5, we get 5. So they
So,
get,
next year-
at least we get, at least we get something.
If I get 10, you get 10.
Dollars.
Next year.
Next. Because the inflation is down.
We'll run some numbers on threes. Remember, you have the sheriff and the prosecutor coming back next Tuesday, and they've been told to bring you numbers that are very close to 5%, which would be huge if they even bring anything close.
Okay, let me ask you this question. What percentage of the sheriff's budget is already contracted for with the union?
A lot, because you already are
And
under
they're in there for
3-year contract for
5.5.
5% increase.
Aren't they at 5.5? Is that approved, something like that?
5.
Okay, let's, how about this? Let's go with the prosecutor and the sheriff, because to me, they're 2 of the biggest, and they are, you guys might not agree with me, but because of, they're so instrumental with their duties to this county as far as public safety. Let's see what they come back with at the plus of 5, and then run us the numbers that everyone else approved. How about that? At least for start. At least for start.
Well, that's
See how close we get to the 8.
one other thing that maybe we should consider the departments that, like the health department, which has requested some bigger than 3, but also made a ton of grant money. Do we, so do we account for that in the budgeting process?
I think we do.
I mean, especially
I
like
think we do. I
discretionary
think we do.
revenue.
I think we do. I'm glad you said that. And
Mark's right.
Mark, you even agreed with that last time.
Any department
To a
that.
point.
Joe's a smart kid.
Don't be invented or structurally sound. Yeah.
Okay.
We got.
At least we have some
Oh,
direction.
you know how much he's making?
Nobody does.
I guess I wanted you the only one who gives a shit about what they think.
All right? Good? At least for starters? To move forward?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
What time are we next Tuesday, 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
Do you want JJC?
I was bringing
They're the one other outlier that they are asking for big increases, but they're also offering to give you some money. We haven't said anything to them.
What would be the point of bringing it back unless we did? I'm not arguing, we should, but I think we should tell them what we don't like. what we
Right,
change.
yeah, no, I get it.
You want to tell them 5% and see what they come back with?
Yes.
You want John to tell them that, or you want me to tell them
Both.
that?
Did they,
I'll work with Kyle to tell them that.
When are they gonna come back?
What's that?
did they already take care of the court reporters?
That happened mid-year.
Because that's the other thing, where like the percentages might get picked up.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of them will be higher than 5 because we're working off amended budgets.
Yeah, it's,
Well, but also, I mean, like, even between commissioner, secretary, and our secretary, we're gonna sit down and normalize that.
I
There will
will.
be some targets.
I will. I sent it to him because I saw he was virtual, and I knew I was here and I was going to give it out and see if he had any questions. Because we started on the job classification, which is going to help in structure a little better for apples to apples comparison, because right now it's not there. Our job descriptions are all we've got not even, yeah, it's, because the jobs were left to the department's discretion in categorizing it, writing up, so it's gotta be a cleanup.
what's that?
It's not getting, all it is raises unless I can cash it.
I'll just give you mine.
Yeah.
Good work, John.
Well, I mean, most of the members of it, I was
It's funny, the things that make people think we made a decision. No.
Hey, Joe, just talk about for 20%. Council, I know we're good. How about, so,
My argument for some time now.
make sure you guys work that out. Come on, Don, let's go.
That was a good day. I think I've been in this building for 12
That's a
hours.
good thing, because I think those cats are like at 3 something hours. Nobody's going to Attorneys? They're bumping up like dollars.
They're at 250. I think you guys decided 250.
Somebody's got to raise taxes or spend less, and nobody has to do either.
Oh,
Pretty good? Almost perfect.
we don't see each other till next Tuesday, is that right?
I think that is correct.